And after that message, it is my honor to now introduce Commissioner Pender-Macon.
Thank you so much, Joe. And I guess I would start by saying thank you to everybody who contributed to make this first of its kind conference happen on a Saturday morning right after school ended for most of you. So notably, educators and school leaders across the state, thank you for being here with us today to celebrate the 20th anniversary of LD 291 and to learn how to improve the provision of Wabanaki studies in Maine schools. It is my honor to introduce somebody this morning who was instrumental in getting the LD 291 law passed. She's been a legislator, a chief of police, a senior advisor to the governor on tribal affairs. She's a Penobscot elder and is an author, a playwright, a radio host, and a recipient of numerous awards, including the Courage is Contagious Award and an honorary doctorate in Humane Letters from University of Maine, an Alumni Career Award from the University of Maine, the Deborah Morton Award from the University of New England. She also has a lecture series that was established at University of New England, and so many more auspicious awards, titles, and significant accomplishments directed at service to our state and to the Wabanaki people, and the bringing to light to all of us the importance of studying and keeping very much foremost and present the Wabanaki history and culture that we are excited to be sharing in our classrooms across the state, and all the better after today. So I guess without any further ado, the person who I would say has been absolutely instrumental in making this day happen, my pleasure to introduce Donna Loring.
Thank you, Commissioner Macon, and for that very nice introduction. And a big thank you, Commissioner, for taking on this law and helping with its implementation. Thank you to Governor Mills for supporting this effort and for supporting the Indian Child Welfare Act. I also want to thank former Governor and now Senator Angus King for signing this bill into law. Without his signature and support, this law would not exist today. So thank you. So I'm going to shorten my presentation, and you'll be thankful I did. On June 14th, 2001, Governor Angus King signed what is known as LD 291 into law. The teaching of Maine Native American history is a law that requires the teaching in our public schools. It is my belief that in order for Maine students to be better prepared to meet global challenges, they must first learn about the contributions of Maine's first people and accept diversity in their own communities and within their own state. Now that we have the law, I have often asked myself about the quality and effects of education. Is education a useful tool or a two-edged sword? I think it's both. One of my favorite quotes is from Professor William Cronin of the University of Wisconsin. Quote, "The past is the world out of which we have come, the multitude of events and experiences that have shaped our conscious selves and the social worlds we inhabit. To understand how and why we live as we do, we cannot avoid appealing to the past to explain how and why we got to be this way." Our past holds lessons about education. In 1732, a meeting took place in Casco Bay between Jonathan Belcher, the governor of the province of Massachusetts Bay, and the Wabanaki tribal leaders. Britain wanted the tribes to take their side in a war against France. Ironically, the war was about the ownership of Wabanaki lands. Governor Belcher insisted that the tribes send their children to Boston to be schooled in the English language and be taught the true English religion. Lauren, a Penobscot, probably a distant relative, was the chief negotiator for the Wabanaki. Lauren responded that he could not give an answer. He had to consult with all the tribes. The tribes never agreed to send their children away to Boston. Children represent our future generations. I use this request as an example to point out that even at the earliest stages of contact, children were not immune from being victims of expansionism and were even a strategic target. When children are taken from their families and indoctrinated with religious and cultural beliefs of the majority, our entire knowledge base is lost. The loss of our children is one of the official definitions used for genocide. The taking of children has harmed us physically, psychologically, spiritually. It has inflicted spiritual wounds on our people, lasting for generations. We call these soul wounds. Just last month, we learned of the discovery of the remains of 215 children who were buried on the grounds of Kamloops Residential School in British Columbia. These residential schools were founded to kill the Indian and save the man, a philosophy first conceived and implemented here in the United States by Richard Henry Pratt, who founded the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania in 1879. The industrial school era was from 1860 to 1996. Carlisle became the model for 26 Indian boarding schools in 15 states. Thousands of private boarding schools sponsored by religious denominations and international schools as well. These schools were formed to address the Indian problem. Here in Maine, tribal children were also sent to Carlisle. The majority of Maine Indian children were taken from their homes and placed into foster care. These original residential schools and systems for Native children that were built to solve the Indian problem actually solved no problem, but created a deep wound inflicted by a double-edged sword of education. That wound is deep, and it's not only is a wound suffered by Native people, but by the governments that inflicted it. This trauma has revealed itself through generations, manifesting itself in suicide, drug abuse, and other horrible acts. It has shown up in the majority society as overt hatred, racism, white supremacy, racial murders, suppression, and lies. Who knew 20 years ago that we would be living today in a society where evil is good and good is evil? How do we fix it? We fix it with truth. Truth in education about history, truth about current events. Truth must overcome the lies. Sidney J. Harris, famous Chicago journalist, once said, "The whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows." Education can be used as a tool to create better understanding, communications, and hope. It has been my life's goal since serving in Vietnam to make Native people visible and make them real to the majority culture. If a people can be marginalized and dehumanized, it is not an issue if those people disappear. I want the lives of our people and our children to be seen and understood, to have value. I want our people to be highly visible and recognized as the talented, creative, and brilliant human beings that they are. This can only be accomplished through that window of education. The soul wound needs to be lanced and cleaned. We must use education in a different way now. We must tell the truth about history. There is new hope with the BLM movement across the country that the education system will change and teach the true histories of the Native people and African-American people of this country. Education plays a vital role in our lives, and it is essential that it is truthful and inclusive. Someday, I hope to see Native history required in every college in this state. Maine can lead again. I leave you with a quote from John chapter 8, verse 32, King James Version of the Bible. Quote, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Thank you.
Donna, thank you so much for those words. And with that opening, I think we'll get right to business with the various breakout sessions. And Joe, I know you maybe gave some instruction at first, but would you mind repeating those directions for those who may not have heard how to access the sessions they'd be most interested in attending?